Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivara-dhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivara-dhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava. Sorry, I lost it. I lost the plot. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivara-dhari. Gopi Janavalabha Girivara-dhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yeah. A little sweet because it's made of teak wood. A little sweet because it's made of teak wood. Okay. Oh, perfect. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Text 15. Today is the Tirobhava of Sri Ishvar Puri. So we'll read a little bit about Ishvar Puri as well. Maybe a couple minutes discussion. And you'll see, there's kind of a theme here today. There's a motif. Rishi Karunikas Tasya Pradad Ubhayam Ishvara Dharmasya Tattvam Jnanam Cha Mam Opi Uddishya Nirmalam Rishikarunikas Tasya Pradadubhayam Ishvara Dharmasya Tattvam Jnanam Cha Mamapyuddishya Nirmalam Rishikarunikastasya pradad ubhayam ishvara dharmasya tattvam jnanancha mamapyuddishya nirmalam Rishikarunikastasya pradad ubhayam ishvara dharmasya tattvam jnanancha mamapyuddishya nirmalam. Others, please.
Rishikarunikastasya pradat ubhayam ishvara dharmasya tattvam jnanam cha mamapyuddishya nirmalam Rishikarunikastasya pradat ubhayam ishvara dharmasya tattvam jnanam cha mamapyuddishya nirmalam.
Anyone in internet land? Okay. Word to word. Rishi, the great sage Narada Muni, Karunika, naturally very affectionate or merciful to the fallen souls. Tasya, to her, Pradat, gave instructions, Ubhayam, both, Ishvara, a powerful controller who can do whatever he likes. Here, Narada Muni. Dharmasya, of religion. Tattvam, the truth. Jnanam, knowledge. Cha, and. Mam, me. There was an article in Back to Godhead about 1 million years ago, wasn't it, by Achyutananda? Mam means unto Krishna. Sarvadharma,
I think it was Mom means Krishna.
something like that, yeah. Api, especially, Uddishya, indicating, Nirmalam, without material contamination. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-yoga Swami Prabhupada. Narada Muni delivered his instructions both to me, who was within the womb, and to my mother, who was engaged in rendering him service. Because he is naturally extremely kind to the fallen souls, being in a transcendental position, he gave instructions on religion and transcendental knowledge. These instructions were free from all material contamination. Responsively, please. Narada Muni delivered his instructions both to me, who was within the womb, and to my mother, who was engaged in rendering him service. Because he is naturally extremely kind to the fallen souls, being in a transcendental position, he gave instructions on religion and transcendental knowledge. These instructions were free from all material contamination. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Here it is said, Dharma satatyam jnanam cha nirmalam. The word nirmalam refers to spotless dharma, spotless religion, or in other words, Bhāgavata-dharma. Ordinary ritualistic activities constitute contaminated religion. We'll take a look at that again in a few minutes. By which one benefits by developing material wealth and prosperity, but uncontaminated pure religion consists of understanding one's relationship with God and acting accordingly, thus fulfilling the highest mission of life and returning home back to Godhead. Prahlad Maharaj advised that one elevate oneself to the standard of Bhagavata-dharma from the very beginning of life. Kaumara acharit pragyo dharman bhagavataniha. The Lord himself also speaks of pure, uncontaminated religion when he says, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. Mamekam. Mam means Krishna. One must understand one's relationship with God and act accordingly. This is Bhagavata-dharma. Bhagavata-dharma means Bhakti-yoga. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti-yoga prayojita janayatya srivairagam jnanam cha yadahitukim. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. To be situated on the platform of pure religion, one should perform Bhakti-yoga in relationship with Krishna, Vasudeva. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Rishikanunikastasya pradad ubhayam ishvaraha dharmasya tattvam jnanam cha mamapyuddishya nirmalam. Narada Muni delivered his instructions both to me, who was within the womb, and to my mother, who was engaged in rendering him service. Because he is naturally extremely kind to the fallen souls, being in a transcendental position, he gave instructions on religion and transcendental knowledge. These instructions were free from all material contamination. So Prahlad is helping his friends understand how it is that he came across this knowledge that he's been sharing with them since the previous verse. And Srila Prabhupada mentions, previous chapter, Srila Prabhupada mentions parenthetically that he alludes to and then parenthetically cites that verse, that first verse from the previous chapter, Komara Acharit Pragya Dharman Bhagavataniha. So this is a verse that we had, all of our Gurukula students had memorized back in the olden days, both in Hawaii. I noticed this at least in Hawaii and at Bhaktivedanta Village up in the foothills near Sequoia National Park, where we had another Gurukula here in California. And so this is the first lesson in life that we should take to Bhakti Yoga. King Parikshit asks, when King Parikshit finds himself cursed, actually even he left home even before he heard about the curse, if I remember the chronology correctly. He left home, he heard about the curse, he sat down because, okay, here it is, death is imminent. And so he sat down on the bank of the river. Someone asked me the other day about this, Ganga or Jamuna? And in essence, they're the same. Yeah. So this is a big momentous occasion, and as I mentioned before, all the sages all around the universe saw this. Oh, he's sitting down, and then, oh, here comes Shukadeva Goswami, the son and disciple of Vyasadeva. Okay, this is going to be cool. Let's have all channels cover this, and have it, stream it live on the interwebs and everything. So they all gathered and to hear this conversation. And King Parikshit's essential question is, what's the most important thing in life to do, right? What's the duty of someone who's just about to die? Which means the most pressing business there is. And so this is Shukadev's answer, unfolding in the course of about 7 days. Apparently there's a little time left for Parikshit to share this with his mother in brief, in the form of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So I'm not quite sure how that all works out, but time is malleable when on the Transcendental Past platform, I guess. So the verse here says that he instructed both Kayadhu and Prahlad, who was in the womb, in religion and transcendental knowledge. So essentially, he taught them Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada makes that pretty clear in his purport. Here it is said, Dharmasya tattvam jnanam cha nirmalam. And what's nirmalam? Nirmala dharma? Well, that's Bhāgavata-dharma, Bhakti-yoga. And he points out that ordinary religious activities constitute contaminated religion. And we know that the Bhagavatam has quite strong language for that. And I thought we would just take a little look at that verse and part of the purport. So this is the second verse of the Bhagavatam. I remember hearing a class years ago where Dravida, I think it was a class by, or maybe I just read it. Maybe it just hit me eventually in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that a Mangalacharan, the auspicious invocation of a sacred text, has 3 parts. Got the Namaskar, the Vastu Nirdesha, and the blessing, which is, the word escapes me. It'll come to me just as I'm trying to fall asleep tonight. Anything to keep me from actually sleeping. So the first verse, the Namaskar, tells us, it's offering obeisance essentially to the deity of the text. And as Srila Prabhupada points out in today's purport, that is Vasudeva Krishna. There's this nice phrase that Prabhupada uses in a purport later in the first canto, Bhakti unto Vasudeva. Now, somehow or other, that I heard that back in like 1970, and I thought, well, that's really old-fashioned and probably a little clunky in some people's ears, but it just sounds cool. There's just something about the rhythm there, Bhakti unto Vasudeva. I just really always liked that. That's the namaskar. The vastu nirdesha is kind of like a thesis statement, sort of. It tells us what the point of the text is. And then it almost came. I can kind of hear it back there. Anyway, the blessing verse, Ashirvad shloka. I knew there was an I in there somewhere. The Ashirvad shloka is the third shloka. So it's really easy to identify them in the Bhagavatam because it's 1, 2, 3. Namaskar, Vastu Nirdesha, and Ashirvad. And the Ashirvad, the blessing is that if you drink this, you'll definitely get drunk. You'll become intoxicated. If you actually drink, if you hear this proper, you drink it because it's a fruit. This is the ripened fruit of the tree of Vedic knowledge, right?
Semi-soft and easily swallowable.
Pardon?
The Prabhupada describes it in the word by word as semi-soft and easily swallowable.
Yeah. No skin, no pit, no strings. It's just like, it's like smoothie, It's mango, it's like mango smoothie, just mango. You don't need the yogurt, you don't need the honey or anything. I mean, they're okay, but if you have it halfway decent mango and it's fully ripe, so ripe that you don't have to pick it, but it falls, it's about to fall from the tree and somebody's got to be there to catch it and then pass it down. It's just juice. So how do you consume it? Well, the only way is to drink it. And how do you drink this? Through the ear. How much do you drink? Till you pass out. Pralaya, right? Loya, that is there, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Prabhupada point out that refers to pralaya, or fainting. Not death necessarily, but in this case. We always think about the context. And then when you come to, what do? Belly up and drink some more until you pass out again. You become completely intoxicated with Krishna Prema. So the Vastu Nirdesha, what it's about, this verse tells us very clearly who's the most appropriate audience for this particular text. So it starts out, Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastava matra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Maha Muni Kritev Kingva Parairishvaraha Sadyo Hridya Varudhya Tetra Kritibi Sushushipistakshanat. Completely rejecting all activities which are materially motivated. But the language is so strong. Bhakti-yoga. And this is, the Acharyas point out, this is actually in the past tense. Having completely rejected all religious activities which are materially motivated. So this is like the next step after the end of the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam. The climax of Srimad Bhagavatam is, we've discussed this from the perspective of so many different kinds of dharma over the last 600 odd verses. Now forget that. Forget it. Just let it go and just surrender to me. Bhagavad Gita, I'm sorry, yeah, conclusion of Bhagavad Gita. So this is the climax of the Bhagavad Gita. And then he says, so completely reject it. Not just tyajya, but parityajya. Completely reject. Throw it away. Run away from it as fast as you can. And here, same thing. Dharma prodhita. Prodhita means pra-ujhita. Not just ujhita, but pra-ujhita. Completely reject it. Bhakti-yoga, cheating religion. And as I pointed out the other day, Krishnadas Kaviraj tells us just what we mean by cheating religion. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha, vancha. The aspiration for any kind of, for all the 4 purusharthas, all the 4 goals or values of human life. So completely reject them. And everybody, what is there? Well, there's prema pumarto maha. The greatest goal, the greatest value is love. All you need is da 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 da, right? Exactly. So, I remember in one of his talks on the 9th chapter of the first canto, grandfather Bhishma's instructions, he says, love is for Krishna. Of course, then everyone else is naturally included because... So, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. So it's that selfishness that makes it cheating religion. This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The Satam. And why are they Satam? Because they're near Matsaranam. They don't envy anyone. And how is it that they're near Matsaranam? Because Dharma Projita Kaitava. They don't have a personal agenda. Their lives aren't about them. They've been burned away. Their idle fancy has been burned away by the Bhagavat, so that their life has become the Bhagavat. The highest truth is reality, distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries, tapatrayon mulanam, pulls them out by the root. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as, and we see that in the 5th chapter, when Narada Muni is instructing Vyasadeva, all these other scriptures there, what? Garbage. And jugupsitam, disgusting, compared with what you need to do. In their place, they're okay. But people are just going to get, especially in Kali Yuga, people are just going to get confused by all this. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of the Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord becomes established within his heart. Now, I mean, what else is there? And I just want to share a little bit from Srila Prabhupada's purport. This, oh gosh, I'm not doing so great. This verse in this purport clinched it for me. When I started reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, after having tried to understand Bhagavad Gita, I think I read tried reading 3 different editions of Bhagavad Gita, and somehow or other, I couldn't penetrate it. Because it was, what's actually there was being covered by these people's own ideas. So as I read through Bhagavad Gita as it is, I thought, oh, okay, I need to try to understand this so I can share this with my friends. I wasn't thinking I'm going to move into the temple and be a devotee or anything. Well, after a little while, I thought, okay, let me experiment with it, get into it, kind of get grok, see if I can really grok it, and then kind of share it with other people. But when I read this, it was like, sign me up. So Prabhupada starts the purport by saying religion includes 4 primary subjects, namely pious activities, economic development, satisfaction of the senses, and finally liberation from bondage. And then he makes a contrast. Irreligious life is a barbarous condition. In the next paragraph he says, man is thriving economically. So at present he's not very interested in religion. Churches, mosques, and temples are now practically vacant. And it's even more the case, 60-odd years later since Srila Prabhupada wrote this. Men are more interested in factories, shops, and cinemas than in religious places which were erected by their forefathers. I mean, what are our places of pilgrimage now? Horton Plaza Mall, UTC, Fashion Valley, Mission Valley, those are our tirthas in this culture. It's a consumer culture. We're not even seen as citizens anymore. We're seen, people write about us in the media as consumers. That's all we are. And especially you get someone like Jeff Bezos, we're all marks. That, you know, I mean, that's what we are. We're all just marks. This practically proves that religion is performed for some economic gains. Economic gains are needed for sense gratification. Often when one is baffled in the pursuit of sense gratification, he takes to salvation and tries to become one with the Supreme Lord. Consequently, all these states are simply different types of sense gratification. In the Vedas, the above-mentioned 4 activities are prescribed in the regulative way so that there will not be any undue competition for sense gratification. But Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental to all these sense gratificatory activities. It is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. In the material world, there's keen competition between between animal and animal, man and man, community and community, nation and nation. And here's where things just kind of like really started ratcheting up for me. But the devotees of the Lord rise above such competitions. They do not compete with the materialists because they're on the path back to Godhead, where life is eternal and blissful. There are 2 paths, pavarga and apavarga. And they're on the apavarga, the path to liberation. Such transcendentalists are non-envious and pure in heart. In the material world, everyone is envious of everyone else, and therefore there is competition. And here is the sentence that just exploded my heart and my mind. My mind and my heart, I guess I should say. But the transcendental devotees of the Lord are not only free from material envy, but are well-wishers to everyone, and they strive to establish a competition-less society with God at the center. So as Raghunath Das Goswami said about Sanatana Goswami, the transcendental devotees are kripam buddhi, yaparadukha dukhi. They're oceans of mercy because the only pain they feel is the pain that others experience. We were talking about this before. What is the wise person's perspective? Atmavat sarvabhuteshu. They identify completely with others' suffering and enjoyment. So they can celebrate, not get carried away, but they can celebrate others' successes with them, and they will feel each other's pain. They'll feel the pain. So when they look around and they see a society like ours, 55 years ago when I first started reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we thought the world was going mad then. We did. We rose up in protest. God, just think about what 1968 was all over the world. And it was younger people, largely younger people rising up, in France and in Eastern Europe and the communist countries, in Mexico, the US, everywhere. Enough is enough, and enough is too much, as Popeye would say. So we thought it was going mad back then. We thought it was going to heck in a handbasket back then. And not only is it crazier, even crazier now than it was then, but we're completely bombarded with information, so-called information or misinformation or disinformation about how it's going crazy wherever we turn. We've got the whole world of information just in our pockets. Oh, I don't have any pockets. But, on our phones we have access to practically whatever we might want or not want to see. And so when I read this sentence, I just thought, oh, this is the revolution that we've all been looking for. This is it. Sign me up. And that's when I knew. Okay, I actually kind of like pictured myself in the basement of the Honolulu temple with a flannel shirt and the sleeves rolled up, and editing Krishna conscious propaganda, writing it, editing it. Gorsandar always wanted to get a printing press there. We had what we called New Navadvip Press, but we never actually had a printing press. I had one of my friends from the Navy who, he was a photographer, but when he was in the Navy, he got trained as a printer. And he ended up moving in a house about just down the street from us. There was this great big white house where a whole bunch of freaks lived, a whole bunch of hippies lived, with a huge banyan tree in the front yard. My friend Alan moved in that house, and he started coming up to the temple. And Gaur-Sundar and Siddha Swarup, they were like, Barbara, you got to really work on this guy, you know. Because we want to have a print. We want to get the trucks out of the garage and turn it into a print shop. Alan was interested, but he didn't bite. But so this sentence completely changed my life. So this is what Narada Muni is teaching Kayatu and Prahlad. He's teaching them that this is the real goal of human life. And Prahlad was able to take it so seriously that even as a little kid, 5-year-old kid, as soon as the teachers leave the room, boom, he's teaching them Srimad Bhagavatam. A bunch of kids who just they can't understand, I mean, they're being trained by teachers hand-chosen by Hiranyakashipu, the personification of demoniac, of sense gratification, right? The embodiment of sense gratification. And they're hand-picked by him to teach the kids Bhakti-yoga, so they could grow up to be nice demoniac leaders. And so Prahlad is going against this. Why? Because of the influence of his spiritual master. So we see him later praying, I was wallowing in the dark well, the blind well of sense gratification, following the common people. But my spiritual master, Narada Muni, lifted me up, and he taught me, what's what. How could I ever give up his service? Anyway, I don't have time to go there. And speaking of spiritual masters, today is the disappearance day of Sri Ishwar Puri, who is the spiritual master of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the disciple of Madhavendra Puri. So I thought I would note that just by reading this one verse in purport from Adi Lila, chapter 9 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj describing the tree of Lord Chaitanya's movement. So he says, Shri Ishwar Puri Rupe Ankura Pushta Hoila Apane Chaitanya Mali Skanda Upajila. The seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishwar Puri, and then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhashya, Sri Ishwar Puri was a resident of Kumarahatta, where there is now a railroad station known as Kamarahatta. Nearby there's another station called Hali Sahara, which belongs to the Eastern Railway. This railway runs from the eastern section of Calcutta. Ishwara Puri appeared in a Brahmana family and was the most beloved disciple of Madhavendra Puri. In the last portion of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Ishwara Puri Gosai Kore Sripada Sevana. Swahaste Korena Mala Mutradi Marjana. Nirantara Krishna Nam Koraya Smarana. Krishna Nama Krishna Lila Shunaya Anukshana. Tushtahaya Puri Tanre Koila Alingana. Varadila Krishna Tomar Hauka Premadhana. Se Hoiti Ishwara Puri Premera Sagara. Therefore, Ishwara Puri is an ocean of love. At the last stage of his life, Sri Madhavendra Puri became an invalid and was completely unable to move. And Ishwara Puri so completely engaged himself in his service that he personally cleaned up his stool and urine always chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and reminding Sri Madhavendra Puri about the pastimes of Lord Krishna in the last stage of his life, Ishvar Puri gave the best service among his disciples. Thus, Madhavendra Puri, being very pleased with him, blessed him, saying, "My dear boy, I can only pray to Krishna that he will be pleased with you." Thus, Ishvar Puri, by the grace of his spiritual master, Sri Madhavendra Puri, became a great devotee in the ocean of love of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states in his Gurvashtaka prayer, "Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagati kutopi." By the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed by the mercy of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. It is by the mercy of the spiritual master that one becomes perfect, as vividly exemplified here. So one thing to note about Ishvara Puri is that he embodies the third anga of sadhana bhakti, Vishrambhena Guru Seva. Vishrambha means, well, ultimately it means intimacy, means confidence. Vishrambha is a word used to describe Krishna's cowherd boyfriends in Vrindavan. They see themselves as, they're so intimately related with Krishna that they even identify with his clothes. Krishna is one of us. He's our buddy. And we hang out with him, and we mess around with him in the forest. We get into trouble with him. We're watching with delight as he's killing demons, and we go back and share the stories with our parents. Vishrambha, there's a kind of unity, a oneness there, in intimacy. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the third canto, in a purport in the third canto, that the relationship between the disciple's relationship with the spiritual master should be characterized by two things, Gaurava and Vishrambha, reverence and intimacy. So what is that intimacy? It's not kind of like hanging out buddy-buddy kind of stuff necessarily, but it means being able to anticipate the Guru's needs. Srila Prabhupada sometimes said, first-class servant anticipates the master's needs and does what's necessary without having to be asked. The second-class servant does what the master asks without hesitation. The third-class servant, it's like they're not going to get it. The master can ask a couple of times, and 3 times, 4 times, and still maybe not get what they need. So Ishvara Puri was so immersed in satisfying the needs of his spiritual master that at the end of his life, when he was invalid, Ishvara Puri took care of everything. By contrast, there was Ramchandra Puri, who dared later even to criticize Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But, Ramchandra Puri was actually trying to instruct Ishvara Puri, oh no, you should be thinking of liberation, Why are you crying about Krishna? You should be, focused on liberation. And Ishvara Puri just like, get this guy out of the room. Don't let him in, Revoke his passport. But Ishvara Puri was he was completely the opposite. Whatever Madhavendra Puri needed, whether it's cleaning, feeding, or hearing Krishna's holy name, hearing about the glories of Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes, Ishvara Puri gave it. So therefore, he was the perfect spiritual master for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's my thing for today. I actually knew it would, I anticipated that today was the disappearance of Ishvara Puri, and I just got so busy the last couple of days that I was a little distracted, and I meant to prepare just to talk about Ishvara Puri and then this Bhagavatam verse tomorrow, but I was just going all day before yesterday, and really all day yesterday. I went to I went to bed exhausted and excited at the same time and had a really hard time falling asleep. Okay, that's all for us. Any comments, questions, anything to share? Dravida Prabhu?
Give some credit to Jayadvaita, who was Das at the time. Many don't know that in 1976 he brought to New York, it was the first New York Rath Yatra, and devotees were gathering from all over. Prabhupada was going to be there. And so Jayadvaita Maharaj was able to get a flight from LA. And he presented to Srila, he was just going to give them the suggested revisions on the first canto that had been published in 1972. And that was what we were reading all the time. And so Prabhupada said, okay, so come in into my quarters and read me some what you've done. So he started reading. He read this verse, not this one, but the one you read, Dharma Prochita Kaita Gotra. And after a short time, Prabhupada said, well, what have you done? What have you done? So, well, Prabhupada, I brought it back closer to what you originally had, you know, from the books that he brought with him on the ship. And, closer to what I have, then it's okay. He gave a blanket, you know, and then it's improved those. And that was incorporated in the 1976 printing, so it was when Prabhupada was on the planet. And the reason why we call attention to it, because if you really study it, and we do have the ability to do that, in the Veda base, they have a file, if you download it, know about it, pre-1978 books, which includes the 1972 Bhagavatam. And of course, the one that they give out is the 76. And if you just look at, you can also see the Delhi Bhagavatam, see from what Hayagriva started with. Now, really, we have to say it was a difficult editing job. You know, Hayagriva he was a new devotee, and there were all these terms and things, so he did the best he could. But by 76, it was a lot that needed to be done. And if you really see how this translation that you read, came forth from Jayadvaita Maharaj's revisions in that original, and it's such an important thing to have these verses, correct. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for that.
Vishrampena Guruseva.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to hear about that one from some of my friends. Anything else? Virchandra? Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. I have a question. Every day we sing this Yasya Prasadam, Bhagavad-prasadam, yeah? And what it means in deep, not like externally. Because of many times this Srila Prabhupada also speaks in purports that to satisfy Guru is a secret how to satisfy Krishna. What it means satisfy Guru in reality.
As I understand it, he's asking on beyond the superficial level, beyond the surface, what does it mean that satisfying the Guru means to satisfy Krishna? That's a huge topic, but essentially, one way to look at it, one way to think about it would be that we see in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the super soul. I think I was discussing yesterday from Madhurya Kadambini how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that those Madhyama Vaishnavas who preach, who are inclined to share their bhakti, what does it really mean to preach? We use the word, Prabhupada used the word preach all the time, but it's got connotations that are a little negative, like preaching at people, being preachy. But what do we really mean what are we really doing when we're preaching? Effective preaching means we're sharing whatever bhakti we have, whatever faith we have. And by faith, we don't mean just belief. Lord Chaitanya tells us what we mean by faith. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe sudhrita nishchoy, Krishna bhakti koile sarva karma krita hoy. That real faith, actual faith means Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudhrita. Vishwasa Sudhrita, very firm faith, not just Dhrita Vishwas, but Sudhrita Vishwas. In other words, you're absolutely convinced that, of what? That if I engage in Krishna Bhakti, everything else is taken care of. All the things that I could possibly have ever wanted are automatically satisfied. So whatever faith we have, whatever little bhakti we might have, however mature our bhakti creeper might be, preaching means to share, really to share that with others. So it's actually ultimately it's a heart-to-heart connection. Sometimes, depending on the audience, sometimes we need to go through people's head and we maybe need to argue with them a little bit to break down some misconceptions if we see that they might be receptive. And if they're not, we don't waste our time on them, right? Because the Madhyama Bhaktas, they just neglect those who are atheistic, those who are actually against the Lord. So if the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the Lord and an agent of Krishna's Kripa Shakti, and we've gotten some of Krishna's mercy through that devotee, that's one way to identify the Guru with the Supreme Lord. So if we satisfy the Guru, Prabhupada would say, love me, love my dog. So the Vaishnavas are very, very dear to Krishna. Krishna will break his promises as we see in the case of Grandfather Bhishma. He'll break his promises to please his devotees. He's Krishna's Bhakta Vatsala. He's naturally inclined toward his devotees, because when someone actually shares genuine affection with us, you got to have a completely rock-hard heart not to be able to respond. When there's affection, it draws affection out of us. And so, when someone is at least even cultivating their love for the Lord's going to always watch out for them. So Bhishma wanted to have this chivalrous exchange with Krishna. So Krishna broke his promise. He's attacking Arjuna. So one, he's going to defend his devotee, and two, he's going to reciprocate the love of his other devotee in kind, right? Yayata mam prapadyate tang satai prapajamya. However we approach him. So anyway, I'm getting off on a whole other thing here. But that's one way to understand how, if we satisfy the spiritual master, because the spiritual master has been deputed to share Krishna's mercy with us. So if we can satisfy that, like an ambassador, right? Prabhupada sometimes compared the guru to an ambassador. So, if we sit down and we have a congenial talk, with the ambassador of the other nation, and we come up with an agreement, then we know that's going to satisfy the chief of state. Because the ambassador is there on that chief of state's, the head of state's behalf, which is why that person was chosen. Anyway, that's a bit of a start. But we should when we surrender to a spiritual master, it should be to someone someone in whom we're convinced that agency has been given, to whom that agency has been given, in whom it's been invested. That's what I was thinking. Someone who really has that position. So that's Yasya Shreto Sotar Upanishad says, Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tatagura tasyaite katita hyarta prakashante mahatmana. That the all the imports of the Vedic knowledge, reveal themselves to those great souls who have the same kind of faith in the spiritual master that they have in the Lord. Yasya Devi Para Bhakti Yata Devi Tatagara. That same faith. So it's a very heavy relationship. It's not light business, surrendering to a spiritual master. I mean, it took me I met the devotees in May of '69 and moved into the temple March of 1970. Didn't get initiated until July of '71. That was largely because I just had a problem living in the temple because of my nature, my introverted nature. But at a certain I actually left the temple. I'm not shy about sharing this because it's the truth. I left the temple 3 times in 1970, but it was just because it was just like getting too much for me, living with absolutely no privacy. Even though it was like it was 3 other brahmacharis. Yeah, 3 other brahmacharis. Still, it was a little much for me living in the room. And I just spent 3 years in the Navy, and I finally had the relief of having a little privacy as I rose in ranks. So I had quarters with a little privacy toward the end of my service in the Navy. And all of us in here, I was again living with, in close quarters with a bunch of other guys, and I just needed a break sometimes, and the only way to get it was to go. So I did. But after the 3rd time, I just thought, I am going to grit my teeth and do whatever it takes to become a devotee. And so 6 months after that, I was recommended for initiation. So it's a very serious thing. I mean, the only way it happened was that I was convinced that there isn't anything else worth doing. This is the most important thing I can do.
All right.
Anyway, big answer, but it's a huge question. Does that help at all?
Here's
a wonderful question.
Here's a 10-second comment on pracharani, preaching. Prabhupada is pracharani, Gauravani pracharani.
Yeah.
It comes from the word prachar, which is a very common word. Adi Lila, chapter 3, verse 40. Kali Yuga Dharma Namere Prachar Tata Lagi Pita Varna Chaitanya Avatar. In the word by words, prachar, propagation. The religious practice for the age is to broadcast the glories of the holy name. This is what pracharani means. It's not this preaching thing, because it has a bad connotation. But that, just a linguistic, it's a prachar. It sounds like the same word, pracharani.
Spreading Bhakti Lata Bijas, like Johnny Bijas, Johnny Prema seed. Yeah, we're sharing what we have. Because we have something, we're given the most valuable thing. And only a kripana, only a miser would not share what they have. Distribute, benefit, use it to benefit others. Therefore, Krishna praises the trees of Vrindavan in the 21st chapter of the 10th canto. They're like great kings, such munificent people who can give people whatever they want. They're giving completely of themselves. Their wood, their bark, their sap, the leaves, flowers, fruits, everything for the benefit of others. And then he says, Etava Janmasap. We should be like that. Everybody should, everyone should live for the benefit of others by their diya arta, what is it? Pranayarta diyavacha. By their life, with their life, their wealth, whatever assets they have, with their intelligence and with their words. That's the spiritual master. Anything else? Anything in internet land?
Thank you, Maharaj. We'll be thinking about Sri Ishvara Puri all day.
I hope I will. Thank you so much. I'll take that as a blessing, and I thank you for it. Okay, time's up. Thank you all so much for your patience. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gauda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.